All right, today I'm going to explain a pre-trip on a modified A truck, which is a B-class truck with a trailer that has a gross vehicle weight rating of 10,000 pounds or more. I'm going to start off by explaining that I see no puddles or leaks underneath this vehicle, that it could indicate we're losing coolant, fuel, or engine oil. I'm going to look around, make sure there's no hanging overhead wires that would get on the truck. There are no holes or hazards underneath the vehicle. Our clearance lights up here, make sure that they're amber in color, not broken, properly mounted and secured. Our 3 ID lights in the center are the same, properly mounted, secured, amber in color, not broken, no cracks in the lenses. We're going to move our way down to these lights here. We have the high beam and low beam light. They're also properly mounted, secure. They're in their sockets. They are not broken or blown out. The glass in the front of the lights are clean and clear. This is our turn signal, our marker light, our 4-way flasher, and on the side here is our reflector. Both of these items are properly mounted and secured in their sockets. They're not blown. The lenses are not cracked. The lenses are also clean and clear. Gonna head open up the hood. We're going to go to the passenger side of the vehicle. I'm going to begin by locating the coolant reservoir. The coolant reservoir here is properly filled between the minimum and maximum level. Follow our hoses around. I see no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or dry rot on our hoses. Our hoses are also not leaking. We're going to go deep inside the motor here, locate the water pump. On this vehicle, this engine, the water pump is down here. It's not leaking. It's solidly secured to the engine block. It is belt driven. We're going to push on this belt a little bit. It should move no more than a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. It can have no frays, cuts, or tears. No shiny spots on the belt. We're going to move to our alternator. It's solidly secured to the engine block with these bolts. The wires on the alternator are also connected solidly to the alternator. None of the wires are cut. No bare wires. No burned wires. We're going to move over to the driver's side of the vehicle. On the driver's side of the vehicle, we're going to go deep into the engine here and locate the air compressor here. You can tell where the air compressor is by following this metal hose down here to the top of the air compressor. You can always tell an air compressor because it's got a big square head and a fat round belly, just like Uncle Bob. This thing is solidly mounted to the engine block down here. It is gear driven off the back here. It is not leaking. We're going to look at our power steering pump, which is right here mounted onto the air compressor. It is also gear driven. It is not leaking. We're going to follow these power steering lines here. These power steering lines going up to the reservoir into the power steering gearbox. None of them have any cuts, abrasions, bulges. None of them are leaking. They're properly mounted in front and the back of the hose with clamps. Your power steering gearbox is properly mounted to the frame of the vehicle here, 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 and here with bolts and nuts. The housing is not cracked. It is not leaking. Our steering gear shaft up here is also properly mounted with U-bolts here and up in here. The U-bolts are properly lubricated. The shaft is not bent, twisted, dented, or cracked. Continuing on with our steering linkage, we're going to talk about our power steering reservoir. It is filled between minimum and maximum. We're moving on to our pitman arm, our drag link, our upper and our lower control arm. that's attached to our tie rod. These items are properly mounted and secured with these castle nut and cotter key on a ball joint. They're secured with clevis pins here, here, and down here. None of the rods or arms of the steering linkage are bent, broken, or cracked. Moving along to our suspension system, our leaf spring suspension system is mounted in the front and down here in the back with these bolts and these bushings. They are properly mounted secured. The spring hangers and mounts are not cracked, bent, or broken. We're going to move along to our leaf springs themselves. The leaf springs are not shifted, cracked, worn, or missing. They're held down with these U-bolts. There are 2 of them. They have 4 nuts. None of them are missing. They're not cracked, stretched, or broken. We're going to move to our shock absorber, which is properly mounted at the bottom and the top. The bushings are not dry rotted or wore out. The shock itself is not cracked or leaking. Moving out from our suspension system to our braking system. We're going to start here where the airline is mated up with the frame. It is properly mounted there with these fittings. They're not leaking. The hose itself is not dry rotted. There are no cuts, no bubbles, and no signs of leaks. It is also mated up to the back of this brake chamber, this single air brake chamber. It is not leaking. There are no signs of leaks. The single air brake chamber has no cracks in its housing. Its band is secure, holding the 2 sides of the brake chamber together. The push rod is properly attached to the slack adjuster with a clevis pin and a cotter key. And when you pull on this slack adjuster, it will show no more than 1 inch of free play. Moving along, here we have our brake drum and our brake liner. Our brake drum is free of debris, grease, oil, and contaminants. It has no cracks in the housing. The brake pads, or liners rather, it's not separated from the metal base of it. There are no cracks in the liner itself, or the pad rather. They are properly mounted and secured. There are no cracks. There are no contaminants on the pad to keep it from stopping properly. Moving our way out, we're going to talk about the tire. The tire, the tread of the tire, there's no less than 4/32 of an inch on the front in all major grooves. Moving to the side, there are no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or dry rot or other damage on the sidewall or on the tread. It's properly beaded to the rim, and it is inflated to company or manufacturer specifications. And I would know that by using a truck tire test pressure gauge on this metal valve stem with its metal cap. This is our rim. The tire is beaded to the rim. The rim has no cracks on any of the spokes. There are no illegal repairs, no illegal weld, no spider trails coming from underneath the lug nuts. The lug nuts are not loose. They are all present and tight. The lug nuts are not cracked or otherwise damaged. We move to the hub seal. There are no cracks in the hub seal housing. All of the nuts and bolts holding it on are present and tight. This hub seal does not leak. It has a proper amount of oil in it here at the bottom. You can tell by looking through this sight glass. And if you couldn't see through the sight glass, you would just simply pop this cork out, put your finger in, and it should come up to the first knuckle right here on your finger. Moving our way back to the mirror. The mirror bracket is properly mounted at the base here on the bottom and at the base here on the top. The arm that holds the mirrors are not bent, broken, or cracked, not rusted through. The mirrors themselves are properly mounted to the bracket. The face of the mirror is clean and clear and adjusted to the driver. The door opens and closes and stays closed. The door has no holes in the exterior or interior. It's properly mounted here by these hinges. The window on the door rolls up and down. The seal for the door is present and tight. There's no major damage to the seal. There are no tears, rips, or cuts here or here. This seal either. We'll move to our steps. Our steps are properly mounted, secured with these bolts and screws here and here. It's free of debris, snow, ice, oil, mud, anything that would make us slip and fall. Our fuel tank is properly mounted, secured with these straps and the metal rubber vibration dampener. There are no leaks in our tank. There are no holes in our tank. There are no dents in our tank that would cause it to rupture. The cap of our fuel tank is on hand tight so that it does not leak as well. Moving to our DEF tank, I see our plastic DEF tank has no cracks or holes in it. It is not leaking. The cap is on hand tight, and it requires to be filled at a minimum of 1/8 of a tank. Moving our way back, we'll look at the frame of our vehicle. The frame of our vehicle is not cracked. It's not twisted. There are no illegal holes or drill marks in the frame of the vehicle. There's no illegal welding on our frame. Moving in here, we see our drive shaft. Our drive shaft is not bent, twisted, cracked. There is no debris in by the U-joints. Moving our way back further into the vehicle. All right, now that we're under here, let's take a look at what we got under here to deal with. Now, as you can see, we have torsion bars under here. They're properly mounted here with nuts and bolts. The torsion bar is not bent, twisted, or cracked. We have a set of leaf springs under here. They're not shifted, twisted, bent, or cracked. They're mounted here in the middle. This is just basically a guide for it here so it doesn't bounce out. They're mounted here with these giant U-bolts. The U-bolts are both in place with the nuts and bolts. None of the U-bolts are missing. The nuts and bolts are all present and tight. And the U-bolts themselves are not bent, twisted, or cracked. Here we can see the back side of the spring brake chamber, the air brake chamber. This is your slack adjuster. This here is your push rod. They're both properly mounted and secured with a clevis pin and a cotter key. With the brakes released, there should be no more than 1 inch of play at this push rod here. Looking at our dual air brake chamber from this side, we can see that there are no cracks in the housing, that the clamp is properly in place holding the two sides together. This is a dual air brake chamber, so there shall be 2 of these clamps on there. Both are present and tight. They're not rotted, cracked, bent, or broken. Looking inside here, we're looking at our brake drum and our brake pad. The brake drum is free of grease, oil, and debris. The brake pad has no cracks in the pad. It's not separated from the metal base. There is no contaminants like grease, oil, or debris soaking the pads, keeping the vehicle from stopping. Looking at the rear drive tires here, We'll look at these dual tires here. Between these duals, there should be no debris. They like to call that bud spacing. There's no debris in here. The tires themselves, like the front ones, have no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or dry rot on the sides or the top. The tread on these have to be more than 4/32 of an inch. Like the rims on the front, same goes for the rims on the back. There should be no cracks or breaks in the spokes. There should be a metal valve stem with a metal cap. You check the tire pressure with a truck tire pressure gauge at this valve stem. The tires should have the manufacturer or company specification PSI in them. There should be no bends, breaks, cracks, or illegal welds on our rim. Our lug nuts should be all present and tight, not cracked, bent, or broken. There are no missing nuts on this either. And if one was loose, you might see rust trails coming off like this, just kind of seeping out like that. And if it was too tight, you'd see cracks emanating from underneath one of these lug nuts. Axle seal. If you look around the outside of the axle seal, you don't see any leaks. You see no oil puddles underneath or any evidence that there ever was oil, meaning that this seal is present and tight. All of these nuts and bolts are present and tight. Moving our way back, we run into this mud flap. It's properly mounted and secured up here. There are no major holes or rips in this mud flap. We're going to move along up here to this door, or tailgate rather. There are no holes in this tailgate. It's properly mounted and secured at the top and at the bottom. The hinge is up the top, and this is the release catch at the bottom. There is 100% DOT tape across the back side of this vehicle to warn people, and there's this DOT tape on the corner indicating the top edge of the vehicle. If we look down here at the lights in the back of this truck, you have your 3 ID lights like we had in the front, only these are red in color. The lenses are all present. They're also not cracked, and there are no missing pieces to the lenses. Moving our way down, we see this light here. This is a brake light, a marker light, a turn signal, and a 4-way, and a tail light. I said marker light, it's a tail light. This one up here also is a tail light, a brake light, and a turn signal, and a 4-way. These are also properly mounted and secured with rubber grommets. There are no cracks or breaks in the lenses, and we'll find out later whether or not they actually work. Looking at our coupling system here, we'll start out with our chain hooks, our chain D-rings. These are all mounted to the back of the truck. There are no broken welds. They're all present and tight. Our chains are properly attached and crossed on the back side of the D-ring, on the D-ring, and on the trailer here. Our electric connector here is properly mounted, pushed in, and locked in place with this tab. It is also connected to the trailer side back here where it's wired in, and it's hardwired into the trailer. The electrical cable itself, there are no cuts, there's no bare wire, and no illegal repairs. Looking back here at our pintle hitch situation we have going on, we have a safety pin, and we have this locking hasp latch. It is currently locked in place with the safety pin in place. You look at the mounting bolts on this pintle hitch. They are all properly mounted and secured. There are no missing mounting bolts. The mounting bolts on the trailer for the other side of this pintle hitch are all properly mounted and secure. There are no missing bolts. The hitch itself, it's not cracked. There's no illegal repairs. Moving on to the tongue of our trailer. The tongue of our trailer has no illegal welds or repairs. There are no holes in it. Moving back to our storage area, it's properly latched closed. It's bolted to the frame. There are no holes in our storage area. We'll move back to our trailer. This is our landing gear. The landing gear is properly raised to the raised position. There is no obvious damage like holes, grease is coming out, leaking. There are no damage to the gears, the windings inside. Moving along here, there's 50% DOT tape along that back side of this trailer. If you crunched it all together, there'd be at least 50% coverage, but it's spread out all the way across the whole trailer. This is a turn signal and a marker light. This is a marker light. These are orange in color or amber in color. They're not cracked. There are no lenses missing. Moving along back here, we're going to drop down and look at the frame of the trailer and the cross members that are going with the trailer. They all must be present and tight. There are no holes on the frame of the trailer. There are no illegal welding or repair on the trailer frame. Now that we're up underneath the trailer, looking at the back side of the axle. Right here we can see a set of leaf springs. None of them are shifted. There are no cracks. There are none missing. The U-bolts are holding it to the axle. All of the nuts and bolts are present and tight. We look at the back side. There's a dust cover on the back side of this electric brake system. We would look through this hole here to look at the brake pads. 1/4 of an inch. There should be no less than 1/4 of an inch on the brake pads or dangerously more thin. The drum, what we can see of it, is not cracked, worn. There's no grease, oil, or debris to prevent us from stopping. The wires that go into the braking system, they're not cut, torn, or frayed. There are no bare wires. The springs are mounted in the front and in the back at that pinion. Moving out to the tire. This happens to be a dual axle setup, but a single tire, not a dual tire. Our tire has more than 4/32 of an inch of tread. There are no abrasions, bubbles, cuts, or dry rot on our tire, and it's filled to the manufacturer or company specifications. The rim has no cracks along any of the spokes of the rim. There are no illegal welds or repairs on this rim. The lug nuts are all present and tight. There's no evidence that they're too tight or too loose. And there's no oblong holes or cracks emanating from underneath the lug nuts. This is a grease oil seal, grease oil hub. So you put grease in through a nipple in here. There's no evidence of leaking on this grease hub. And it's properly mounted and secured. This rim has a rubber valve stem and a rubber cap because these are not high pressure tires. Moving our way back here. And we see the back side of this trailer. We see that there's 100% DOT reflective tape back here. Stepping back, I see down here at the bottom, there's 2 lights here, 3 lights in the middle, and 2 lights over there. These lights here are the 4-ways, and the turn signals, and they're also tail lights. The light on the inside here, the light on the inside here, those are tail lights and brake lights. These lights are not cracked. There are no missing lenses. All of these lights are red. These three lights in the center, these are the ID lights like we had on the tractor, the truck unit, and on the front of the truck unit. All of these lights are present and tight. They're not cracked, bent, or broken. So entering the cab, I'm going to use 3 points of contact. I'm going to grab here, here, or here. I'm going to place my feet here. We're in the cab now. Now this truck here, this is a Freightliner. Looks like a business class Freightliner. It's a little dump truck. It's a little dump truck, a little smaller than I'm used to, but that's okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start with our emergency equipment. We're going to look down here at a fire extinguisher. We have to have one ABC rated fire extinguisher. Man. Now that the truck is running, I got the steering wheel straightened out. We're going to talk about our oil gauge. It's between 30 and 60 psi. Right now it looks like it's about 30 psi. Our water temperature gauge between 180 and 190. Right now it looks like it's just under 190. Look over here. This little green bar here, that's our DEF. It has no less than 1/8 of a tank. Our primary and secondary air gauge here at the bottom, they're between 120 and 140, and between 120 and 140 is where the governor cuts off. We're going to move away across then down. We're going to go ahead and check our AC and refrigerator and all that, our HVAC. I'm going to turn this all the way over here to this position here. I'm going to feel down the bottom to make sure there's air coming out the floor. I'm going to feel over the dash to make sure there's air coming out towards the window. Before we start moving, I'm going to make sure that my seat belt has no cuts, tears. There are no burn marks, cuts, tears, or frays in my seat belt. My seat belt latches and unlatches. Now we're going to check our brakes. So the air is already built up, the governor's cut out. I'm going to go ahead and do a tug check. I'm going to take the truck and I'm going to put it into drive. I'm going to leave the brakes. I'm going to leave the brakes applied, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a tug. The vehicle did not move. Now I'm going to do a service brake check. I'm going to release the brakes, and I'm going to move the truck 5 miles an hour with my hands off the wheel. Okay, I'm going to gently stop. The wheel did not move left or right, indicating that there is a brake alignment problem, such as a thicker pad on one side than the other, or they're out of adjustment. I'm going to go ahead and take the truck and put it into neutral. And we're going to roll a little bit. There we go. Now we're stabilized. So now I'm going to go ahead and I don't know what I did there. This phone's a little more fancy than I'm used to. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and build the air all the way up to its maximum operating pressure. We're going to wait and listen for it to, the air, right there, the air dryer spit out some air. And now we're going to do our leaks, alarms, and buttons. So, what we're going to do is we're going to shut the engine off. Turn the key to the run position. All the lights will sweep and bleep when that happens. We're going to leave that on. We're going to leave this button pushed in. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to time the air loss for 1 minute with the brakes applied. So I'm going to step on that brake pedal. See where the air gauge is stabilized at. And it looks like it's stabilized at 125. We're going to time this for 1 minute. Starting now. This vehicle should lose no more than 3 psi in 1 minute. This is a Class B vehicle, air brakes, pulling a trailer that has electric brakes. Okay, now we're coming up on our full minute. We are not releasing the foot pedal until after I've looked at my air gauge and told you what it is. Now, I'll look at my air gauge again, and as you can see, we have not lost more than 3 psi in 1 minute. I'll release the air brake pedal. Now we're going to test our alarms. We're going to fan our brakes until the warning alarm comes on and the light will come on. This should happen above 55 psi. There's a light, there's the alarm, and it looks like it came on at about 60 psi. Now we're going to continually pump the brake until the button pops out, and that should happen between 20 and 40 psi. Now I'm going to show you a light operations check. Turn the key to the run position. Make sure the lights are on, in the on position. We're going to make sure that our left turn signal works on the inside. Our right turn signal works on the inside. Our high beam light comes on the inside, the indicator. And our four-way flashers come on. Indicators. I'm going to go ahead and turn the high beam on, exit the vehicle properly, and show you where these things are. The four-way flashers are on right now. And we'll see that our high beams are definitely on. And there's our four-way flasher on the left side of the truck, driver's side. Our high beam's on this side. And our four-way flasher works on this side of the truck. Let's continue down. This one is working here on the side of the truck. Our four-way flashers are working here on the back side of the truck. Here. In the very back. Oh, looks like I was wrong about which one the turn signals were. The turn signals and four-ways are on the inside. There was some strange mechanic having fun. Glad I looked at that. Moving our way up this side of the truck. Again, we see that there's a four-way flasher working here and on that side. And here. Now we're going to look at the low beam lights and the left and right turn signal. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to shut these off. Turn that left turn signal on. This is my left turn signal indicator in the front. Here's another one. This will be our left turn signal indicator on the back of the dump truck and the front of the trailer. This here, surprisingly enough, is the left turn signal on the backside of our trailer. Now we'll check the right turn signal indicator. Also, there's a left turn signal indicator here as well on the backside of the dump body. We'll get our right turn signal indicator on and check it, make sure that it functions. And the right turn signal indicator works here. It works here. It's working here in the dump body, although that one looks like it's pushed in quite a bit. Maybe. That'll have to get fixed later. It's also working down here. Right turn signal indicator works on the back side of the dump truck, on the front side of the trailer. And on the back side of the trailer. Now, we're going to check the clearance lights, the marker lights, and the tail lights. The marker lights on these are working, here and here. Your clearance lights up top are working, though you can't really see them too good because it's daylight out. We're going to work our way back. This is a marker light. This is another marker light. It's working. The tail lights work on the back of the truck. The marker light works on the front of the trailer, there and there. There's another tail marker light, and the tail lights of the trailer are all working. We'll check around the other side. Once again, marker light here, another marker light here, and here. The tail light works on this side. These light up as marker lights as well, or tail lights rather. There's a marker light back here, a marker light here, a marker light here, and this is also a marker light. These are the low beam headlights. Can I get one of my lovely assistants to press on the brake pedal? Sure. Thank you. This is Kyle.
Hello, guys.
Anyway, he's going to step on the brake pedal so I can check the brake lights. So, before you do that, let it go. Before you do that, realize that if you step on this brake pedal really hard, it's going to fuck diaphragms, okay? So just gently press on it, just enough to, yeah. So now, our brake lights come on here. They're also on down here. Over there. Back here, apparently on the inside. That's really strange. So I guess the outside ones are just taillights. Okay. And up here at the back of the trailer, over here. So all of our brake lights are working. Good. And that will conclude our pre-trip for this evening.